Hey guys, welcome back to Team Death Slinger. My name is Peter, and today we have a $50 holiday gift guide, plus or minus a couple bucks, for the 2025 holiday season. Now, we are about a week away from Christmas, and if you're looking for last-minute gifts to get your loved one who plays Digimon, what I've done here is kind of break things into categories. We have a recommendation for sealed product, for generic staples, and then I broke things down by color for what I would spend $50 on to give somebody based on the color they like to play or what category of gift you want to give them. And we'll go over my recommendations. You're probably going to see a lot of scrambles, a lot of trainings, but you should send this video to somebody who is going to buy you a gift this holiday season. If you're a Digimon player and you need to help your parents, any girlfriends, significant others, anyone like that, that's kind of what this is intended for. But if you are a Digimon player, you can let me know in the comments down below how I did and what you think of my recommendations. So without further ado, we have sealed product. My two recommendations for this would be either a special limited set booster box. It comes in at about $53. This is a fantastic product. It is our latest product release. It comes with scrambles. It comes with the dual colored memory boost, and you have a chance to get some high value reprints like Death Xmon and Ruin Mode. It's just kind of perfect for players in all categories. I think it's great for new players, and it's great for established players who have a padded out collection already. My option B is kind of conditional. It would be 2 copies of the 2 most recent starter decks, Guardian Vortex and Fabled Waltz. I do not recommend buying these on TCG Player if you're trying to spend $50. They're about $16 a piece. But if you are like me, your local game store, local Target, local Walmart might have a ton of these. My Target has these for about $11 a piece, and they literally have a stack of 10 of like each starter deck. The reason I recommend this is because each individual starter deck is going to come with 1 copy of each training. So if you buy this for somebody, they're going to wind up with 4 copies of each training for each color, and they're going to get 2 playable decks just right out of the box. A great way for them to enjoy some games if they don't have these decks already, and get 4 copies of each training, which is great for players who have trainings because you can always use more to build more decks, and nobody really likes to pay for trainings. They're a couple bucks a piece, and the price kind of adds up pretty quickly. So yeah. Moving on, we have yellow as a color. What I would recommend is 2 copies of BT18 Shadow Seraphimon Ace. These are about $14 a piece for $28 total. This is a great defensive tool in yellow, and it is seeing lots of relevance in competitive play, so it's good for casual players, good for competitive players. For the same reason, BT16 Valkyremon Ace, $14 for 2 copies is not bad. I don't think it's a great offensive tool in yellow, kind of on the opposite side of Shadow Seraphimon Ace, but it does see a lot of play still, and I think it's worth picking up. We have 2 copies of Yellow Scramble. Kind of like I said earlier, you're going to see a lot of scrambles and trainings on this deck, in this list, and then 2 copies of Physical Training. That'll bring you up to about $50.50, not counting shipping, but we're going to assume you go into a local game store and getting similar rates to TCG Player. For purple, we have 4 copies of Wisdom Training. This is about $5 if you get the starter deck 19 exclusive one. I put the art up there just so you would know which version you should be buying. Like I said earlier, trainings are kind of a pain to buy when you're building lots of decks, and not everybody likes to pull their copies of their trainings from other decks to put in other decks, so getting 4 copies of a training in your favorite color to play is kind of a boon. 2 copies of EX5 Leviamon, they run about $10 a piece, but if you play purple, you know this card gets splashed in like everything. Having more copies of it feels nice, so you don't have to pull it out of other decks again. 2 copies of Purple Scramble. Purple plays from the trash so often that scrambles just feel nice in almost every purple deck you play, so I would definitely recommend grabbing some copies there. And then 1 copy of EX5 Anubismon. Because it's a 1-of, it's restricted. You can only run 1 copy, so having the extra copy to put in other decks, fantastic. This would bring you to a total of about $49.50. Moving on, we have black. I have 2 copies of BT16 Vikemon Ace. It is a black and blue Blast Ace that has a D-Digivolve effect, and I believe it stuns bodies, but great defensive tool in black for a level 6. And then we have 4 copies of LM Cyberdramon Ace. This is a new Blast Ace from the LM set. It plays you Tamers, and it has a D-Digivolve when attacking trigger. It's just great. It fits into lots of black pile decks, so it slots into lots of black decks across the spectrum. I think it's going to just be a good generic card in lots of decks. That's why it's on this list. 4 copies of the Defense Training because they are really cheap. They fit within the budget, and I didn't really have anything else that I would prefer to recommend over this card. 2 copies of Black Scramble. Same reason you're seeing Scramble in every other category. It's just good, and it's new, so you probably don't have it yet. 1 copy of Promo Raremon. This is a black-purple level 4 Digimon. It costs 4 to play, and if you don't know what it does, you get to trash a card to draw 2. It's very powerful, very versatile, and it does have the Cyborg trait, so it does see some play in some black decks. And then lastly, 2 copies of the ST17 Mega Gargomon Ace. Awesome defensive option in black. It is black-green, and they are nice and cheap. Having 2 copies should be plentiful for most black decks. This brings you to a nice round total of $50. For red, I am recommending 2 copies of BT17 Gallantmon Crimson Mode Ace. That's a bit of a mouthful. Brings you $22 for 2 copies, and we have a couple reasons for recommending this. It is Debatably the best level 7 Blast Ace for red. If you care about trash, this is just a great top end for winning the game. We have lots of Gallantmon support coming up, so I could see this card jumping up in value once EX8 and BT19 hit. And then I'm also recommending 2 copies of Elam Agumon Bond of Bravery Ace, because this is the other level 7 top end you can run if you don't care about trash. This might be a better fit for your deck. We also have 2 copies of Red Scramble, 4 copies of the BT14 Koromon. This card is just kind of absurd with how many decks it gets played in. It has such silly high competitive representation because it is probably the best draw engine in red. So lots of decks want to use this. If you build lots of decks, this is just a great card to get for somebody because they don't have to pull it out of other decks like we keep saying. So just having more copies is really useful. 4 copies of the offense trainings, they're nice and cheap. 2 copies of Crimson Blaze because it hits wideboard, and red is one of the colors that is uniquely positioned to do this, so you might want to run it as a kind of filler card in lots of red decks, so it makes sense to have a couple copies on hand. This brings us to a nice total of $49, coming in under the $50 mark. For green, I'm recommending 2 copies of Quartzmon Ace at $14. Awesome level 7 top end, stuns the board. Lots of green decks go wide, they play lots of bodies, and that makes Quartzmon a really valuable tool to have as your top end. I'm also going to recommend 3 green scrambles. We couldn't quite fit the full 4 in a playset, but this would be $7.50. We have 1 copy of Imperial Dramon Paladin Mode Ace from BT17. This is maybe debatably the strongest level 7 Blast Ace. It's just really high up there in price. Scrambles make trash really relevant. So being able to clear away the trash with the Imperial Dramon Paladin Mode Ace is really powerful. And this is just a nice thing to get as a gift for somebody. They don't have to worry about shelling out $20 for this card. Most people are going to run 1 or 2 copies. So you're kind of saving them a lot of hassle by picking this up for them. And then lastly, 2 copies of BT1 Mimi. Green likes to push eggs. It likes to play lots of cards. So green is going to facilitate lots of Mimi doing that. So Mimi's going to slot into lots of green decks across the spectrum. Great generic card to hand somebody who plays a lot of green. This would bring us to $49.50 for green. Now we have blue. 2 copies of BT17 Ancient Garurumon, just a strong generic blue top end. It sees play in more decks than just the hybrid Ancient Garurumon deck. That's why I think it's good to slot in here, because it can see play in multiple decks. 2 copies of BT14 Zoodlemon Ace brings about $14 of value to the table. We are going to have source stripping become somewhat relevant in EX8 as we get more support for the Ice Snow trade. You might see this climb in price and have increased relevance as a result. I also think this is just a great bouncing level 5 for blue in general, and it can slot into lots of blue decks because of that, so just having more copies of it is great. 4 copies of Mental Training, 2 copies of Blue Scramble, and then the 1 copy of Davis Monomiya because it fit. It's a great blue searcher, it's generic, it's a mem setter. It can also slot into green decks, so that would total us about $50. Lastly, we have the staples category. If your loved one does not play a single color, they play things all across the spectrum. This is mostly white cards, but they are staples in my eyes. 1 copy of BT9 Death Exmon. This did just get a reprint. It's just cheap enough that I feel like everybody should have a copy or 2, and gifting somebody a copy of it is just great. It's a fantastic card, super useful and competitive, and there's no reason not to throw one in a deck. 2 copies of BT8 Digimon Emperor, stops rookies from attacking, and this also has really high competitive usage, so it's probably slottable into most decks that people are playing. 2 copies of BT8 Chimeramon, and then 2 copies of EX1 Analog Youth. This card's getting pricey. It feels bad for decks that rely on trash strat or don't have a reliable searcher, so being able to give somebody a couple copies of this might be nice for their jank decks or for any deck that wants to find their Digimon pieces. So this would bring you to about $52, just $2 over, but not that big of a deal. So that is my 2025 Digimon Holiday Gift Guide. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Let me know what you're getting your loved ones for Christmas. I hope you guys have a happy holidays. Thank you for watching. Have a great day.
Thank you to our YouTube members for supporting this channel. It's people like Langlong, Big Z11, and Coffee Deus who make videos like this possible.